Attention gamers. For 99% of people who play League of Legends, the stupidest thing you can possibly do is play an ADC bot lane, yet Riot has gaslit its player base into thinking it's meta, and the best way to explain why is to look at golf. When a person hits a golf ball with a driver, it can reach speeds of 150 to 200 miles per hour. If a 200 mile per hour golf ball were to hit you in the head, you would either be dead on the spot or permanently dumber than the Island Twins. Yet if you watch any pro tournament, there are people just lining up right in front of the drives. That's because pro golf is a different game, and I guess these people are so confident in a pro not missing their shot that their dumb ass is literally willing to gamble their life on it. Outside of maybe 2019 Jeffrey Epstein, you would never find someone standing in front of an average golfer's drive, because that would just be stupid. Similarly though, playing ADC in the bot lane is something that happens at the pro level because it's different. The games are slower to allow for farming, their teammates know that the top priority is to protect them, and these players have made a career out of not putting themselves in vulnerable positions, but none of that exists in the ranks that most of us play in, which just results in the player base being gaslit into playing champions who are free helpless pinata ATMs for the enemy team if behind, in a lane that is literally designed to put them behind in a solo queue setting. And that's why mages are a way safer and smart pick for the bot lane, so the next time someone flames you for not playing an ADC bot because that's what pros do, just think that's like someone flaming you for not standing in front of a random average Joe golfer's drive, because that's what people do at the pro level. And today I'm going to show how breaking away from the Riot propaganda will make you a happier player with a higher elo if you like to play in the bot lane. So my strategy lately has been, when I get a poke support like this elo inflated lightbender, I will play my handy Mountain Dew code Red Zerath, and I will say the biggest weakness here is that if we wiffle ball bat any early skill shots, enemies will try to take advantage of their ADC stable DPS, but what is criminally underrated is Mage auto attacks in the early levels, so if you engage in the slap battle with confidence while buying time for your CDs, it typically works out more than a young Chris Bumstead, and you can see here we secured the easy early double. Then as we are heading back to lane after a little shopping spree, we typically have enough lost chapters to assemble a budget Harry Potter novel, plus the timing here worked out where a honey-covered disco ball rolling bear riding midget was in the area. The bad news was the power went out for a bit, so I couldn't see shit, but the good news was when they assassinated Obama, it leveled me up. The perfect coincidence to marinate this walking sushi roll with some sky-mailed balls of ketchup until she pissed off. A few minutes later there's red meat on the menu at McDragon, so everyone and their uncle is in line to get a bite, but the only line I'm concerned with is the one that connects the dots between me and a dead bitch of a fish, and then I combo the kill by zooming way out so everyone can get a good view of my lack of accuracy. Back at bot we are pushing harder than the little engine that could, but we lose power again, so thankfully Lux brings enough lumens to kill a grown gunslinger, and you get hit by one bind at this point in the game as an ADC and you just die. Then we are basically just a traveling BDSM camp where we run around the map tying people up and banging them, and we are so experienced that we don't even get our hands dirty during these picks. We slam bonied bot lane tower, so now we are hitting a bit of ARAM mid, which news flash is way more beneficial for mages than it is ADCs, but to that point we just have the Sparta simp curb stomp Obama and he dies within one combo. Turns out a wild windshitter up north has completely gone rogue and has become a bit of a problem, so we head up there only to find out this guy is ODing on amphetamines, and trying to pin this mofo down is quite the challenge as my heart is beating louder on every miss until eventually we clutch it just in time to save my blonde internet GF's life. Anyways, I'm having the time of my life traveling the world one-shotting waves, not fighting for last hits, and if you compare it to the experience their gaslit ADC is having, I wouldn't want to swap places. I was then told that this place offers an all-you-can-eat buffet, but when I got there they put a bag over my head, turned the lights out and ambushed me, so I just quickly mukbanged the sushi roll I ordered, and then I made like a fart and blew that shithole. Then a big fight is breaking out for bot side grubs, and being a hard stuck lifer I always rotate way too late to have an impact, but on this floating toastered bathtub I can play Dead Bitch Simulator from afar and make sure no fleeing windshitters get home to kiss their inbred kids goodnight. A mid-fight breaks out, and typically as the carry you attract a lot of concerned stakeholders in your demise, with Nocturnes always being at the tippy top of that list, but even with a spell shield I have self-peel and a bunch of the boys in town to get my back. This leaves just the knight in dying armor to get to cosplay a Cheez-It that fell on the floor at a doggy daycare, which long story short doesn't end up well for him. We get word that the enemy team is trying to circle jerk a giant Barney dick, and considering in this elo the idea of a front line is a mythical concept, I wouldn't be able to walk up enough to contribute as an ADC without getting blown up like a balloon animal at a carnival. But on this Fork 220 outlet I can poke and prepare for what would have been the second best sniping scene behind Mark Wahlberg in Shooter, but of course the lights had to be turned off the second. Anyways, we cleaned this shit up like custodians until it was just the Tin Man running for his life, but I didn't want to be taken into his little personal P. Diddy basement, so I kept my distance and zapped him from afar. We then walked into their base like we own the place, taking down towers and inhibitors with ease, and any windshitter that dares try to turn us into Fruit Ninja NPCs is gonna learn that him diving in like a moron is all it takes for us to gang up and one-shot their Lucian. The fighting continued all over the map, but I could join late, knowing once the slinging slasher did his routine I could just re-aim my lightning and erase a ridiculous chunk of his health. Then we had to go short-circuiting Tom Brady status real quick against the koi fish. We have a bit of custody battle over Elder Drag, which in a close game like this can be the deciding factor, so I need to make sure President Obama knows that one ability and he will be calling an ambulance, so he burns his summoners just to get out of my sight. And if fucking Nocturne would just leave the lights on for once it would be great, but at least I could take my frustration out on half his health with one Q after. Then with Elder, you already know the weather forecast on the Rift was calling for deadly balls of fire falling from the sky, and this time I was going to be ready if the brutal weather knocked the power out to punish the asshole who kept doing that to me all day. And with that, the poke pick for me has been going like this. In terms of when I get an engaged support like a pick-hungry Pyke, I like to play Tiny Dumbledore because putting shitters in the Pride Pen makes it easy for him to lock up his crop dust stun. As a Veigar I am weakest before my first back, but we managed to chop down the tree, and then Legolas does abuse the fact that I can't punish him for flashing this early to kill my butt buddies, so we just kind of stare awkwardly at each other while I'm holding on for dear life. That said, I know all I have to do is chug the Kool-Aids that I packed with me before work today, and I will be healthy enough to hang out until Pyke gets back from the hospital. And I love a vengeful support as he comes in and helps me make sure that Archer tastes the rainbow. Then I don't know, boys call this a fat bag of virgin coke, but I swear junglers gank my lane at least 69 times as often when I'm playing a mage with CC, and I think it really just boils down to the fact where if you were Harambe in the jungle, would you rather gank for a lane where it's just like a chick with a rifle which triggers your PTSD of that time you just wanted to be boys with a toddler, or would you rather hang out with a midget leprechaun who can tie people up for you to whack them down with your poles? This means he was in my lane more than a trucker with roid rage, and even though I think we were as fine as Madison beer without him, his presence was nonetheless appreciated as it secured a nice early advantage over the tree and his arrow simp. And I guess it's one thing to play a solo lane where you put people inside the cuck cage and then you just jerk off in front of them, but it's a whole different thing to have them in there when you have two piranhas that you can throw in with them so the tree dies, and then Varys is like a cat with 9 lives, and by cat I mean pussy, so obviously he has to die with no thanks to my skill shots. At this point, with just one item, all I need to do is wait for a team fight, and then I can make both of them taste the rainbow and then use my win fight button on Legolas. And when the fights are so easy, we launch kids games at the same time as I look at my damage and yell the O's while Pyke marks the X's. Typically when the enemy jungler visits my lane as an ADC, I'm puckering my ass so hard you could throw pistachios between my cheeks and I would deshell them naturally, but on the lucky little leprechaun I look as assassin grasshoppers and say I would like your lunch money, politely, and then I take it. Then anytime we see the blue baldy with the bow alone, we rush up to him to show him how many collective skill shots we can miss, as a way of making the point that it doesn't even matter when I can just point and click nuke his ass back to Timbuktu. And then I tell Pyke how much he means to me by skipping town the second people come trying to claim his bounty. I head mid because I want to put this weaponized Beedrill in the Pride Pen, but when he sees that I whiffed my combo he must think that he can kill me while my shit is still on cooldown, but unfortunately for him cooldowns haven't existed in this game in quite some time, so he gets embarrassed. Quick no ult available damage check against an ADC at this point in the game. Ah yes, sweet dopamine, you guys keep playing those champs in solo queue, because after all people do stand in front of pro golfers when they drive, so it's actually grief not to, am I right? Turns out their team's biggest threat is the floating Aladdin that is distributing space aid, so I give a new meaning to the reach around by sinking his battleship from behind the other wall. Anyways, the diabetic tree is starting to get smart and learn how to avoid the cuck cage, so I reward his ingenuity by killing him again. Somehow their Orin is tankier than an American M4 Sherman, but you know who isn't tanky? The guy who is just following the meta that he's been led to believe is the correct way to play this game. Now as I roll this next clip, I would like to ask you all, if I was on an ADC with a standard ADC build just as overextended here, what are the odds it would yield the same outcome? Yeah, none, you gaslit victims. But anyways, I'm launching a YouTube campaign against a YouTuber with similar success called Mr. Beast, who launched Team Trees, and my counter initiative is to actually remove trees. As you can see, I am quite effective at this point in the game. Let's play a little devil's advocate, because at 30 minutes an ADC should be coming online. Granted, the game isn't totally doomed, so how do I fare in a teamfight against that type of potential? And I guess the best answer to that is the amount of health bars I've removed in such a short amount of time in this fight could be seen as blasphemy, because I feel like a god myself. Turns out my team has a bit of I'm shit syndrome, which means this is a close one, and when games are close it's nice to know you have a single button that you can push to make sure their ADC is no longer welcome in your presence. Then with him out of the picture, it's a sad story for the enemy team, because he means they don't have a source of damage because their carry is not self-sufficient. Meanwhile, I can let a tree yank my chain until I cream without fear of it harming my reputation, because I can just hit that bitch with the Be Gone special whenever I want. Floating Aladdin is their team's only hope, like his herpes are really starting to hurt, but he fucks up and busts his own condom, which opens the door for me to pride pen his ass. And you touch the walls of that this late in the game, you will be seeing Jesus Christ real soon, my friend. Then I guess if ADCs had an item like Sonya's where they could just say, oh shit, I suck at positioning and got myself in the middle of the team, oh well, I will just let the dust settle type of item, then you could make the point that they aren't quite as bad of an idea, but they don't, because their build paths revolve around damage and damage alone. Anyways, as a squishy carry it's custom to fight front to back, but not only do I have self-peel and a bit of beefiness, I can also play around finding and killing priority targets as an added perk. This gets us a contested dragon followed by an uncontested dragonfly, followed by some obese train conductor who absorbs so much damage you just know his tampon is heavy, as it takes 4 of us to knock him down. But add Elder Drake to the mix, I have close to 30 kills with defensive items in my kit, not to mention Zanya's, which is the master of baiters in this elo and a real lifesaver. So with that, I don't know what else to say. If you guys want to continue standing in the line of sight of deadly ass golf balls that can kill you, and flaming others for not doing the same, all because you see people do it with the pros, you go right ahead. But I'm gonna keep my sanity by playing the game the way it was actually designed to be played at this rank, and that's by looking out for yourself with mages instead of marksmen in the bot lane. Rav out.